Welcome back to another edition of the Citizens Fire Academy. We're here in Sheep's Pond in Brewster with members of the Harwich Fire Department dive team, in addition with members of the Mid-Cape dive team. And with me here is Lieutenant Mike Mason, who heads up the team. And welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
If you would give us a little history of the dive team in Harwich.
It was just about 20 years ago that we noticed there was a lacking of the rescue capabilities on the Cape. We have 560 miles of shoreline, and we didn't have any good way to rescue or recover somebody who was out in the water. And we had some people that knew how to dive, we had some equipment, but we didn't have any training, we didn't have any good equipment. So we got together and went to the chiefs and said, how are we going to do this? And they said, we can't afford it by ourselves. So 20 years ago, we put together the Mid-Cape dive team, which encompasses the towns of Dennis, Brewster, Chatham, Harwich, and Orleans. And since then, we've added Eastham and Wellfleet to the team as well. We have about 20 members. All the members are trained to a minimum of the advanced diver level, which is 2 classes above open. And then a lot of us are trained to dive master, which is the highest level you can get below instructor. And we just go from there.
How many Harwich firefighters are members of the dive team?
Right now we have 6 members. Myself, who's the head of the dive team, Lieutenant Timmy Jakes, Ryan Edwards, Scott Tilsley, Eric Elliott, and Matt Eldridge. We just recently removed a member and added another member. So we keep 6 on the team, and that adds to the total of the whole team.
And what's behind us here? You've got a drill with members of the Mid-Cape dive team. How often do you drill, and what are the different venues that you use to drill at, and what are you trying to accomplish in something like this?
Well, behind us we have a drill now that's our search drills. We have some objects thrown in the water. This would be for evidence recovery for the police or anything like that. Victim or body recovery is a little bit different, but it's still run the same way. We have a diver out there on the line. They run a search pattern back and forth. We have hand signals that are between the diver and the tender on the shore, and that's how we communicate back and forth, is just through pulling on the line. When they do find the object or the victim, they signal back to us and we can send a crew in to help them. We have backup divers that sit next to the diver so that if something happens, they go out and rescue them. We drill about 12 times a year. We try to do different water venues around the Cape area in our area. We go to P-Town. We've dove up there. We dive in all the towns: Scargo Lake in Dennis, Sheep's Pond here in Brewster, Long Pond in Harwich. So we try to move around so we're in different areas, different depths, different water. Some is clear, some is really murky. There's a time when we'll be in the water when you can't see your hand in front of your face, and all you're doing is going by feel with your hands for whatever you're looking for.
Some incidents that we've had in the past, I don't know if you'd classify them as typical, but the circumstances that the dive team is called for would be what?
Well, we respond to anything from people in the water that might have drowned or fallen off boats or something, to airplane crashes. We've had vehicles in the water. We've recovered safes for the police department for their investigations into robberies. We do everything underwater, anything that needs to be done. We've had several plane crashes. We've had several boat accidents. All around the Cape, it's just water. So there's plenty of opportunity for something to happen.
Okay. Well, if we can grab one of your divers and bring them up here, and we can take a look at some of the equipment that
Sure.
they wear up close.
Scott Tilsley.
Okay.
Hey.
We've managed to break firefighter paramedic Scott Tilsley away from his part here in the drill today. Welcome, Scott. And first off, I'd like to just have you introduce yourself to the audience here, if you will.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Scott Tilsley, firefighter paramedic with the Harwich Fire Department. Been on about 6 years on the dive team for, I guess, 5 years or so. And the dive team is just another interesting aspect of the job that we do. Gets us into a different environment, gives us a new opportunity to help people and serve the community.
Okay, what I'd like to do is just demonstrate and show what some of the equipment is that we have to wear. It's a very equipment intensive activity that we do. We can start with the front. Scott has on a exposure suit to keep him warm in the water. These suits are good all the way up through December or so before we have to actually put dry suits on for the colder water. He's got a hood that goes over and covers his ears and head. Every diver, if you turn around a little bit, Scott, breathing is very important in diving. So we carry a main tank and a backup emergency tank. That's called a pony bottle. You come back around. Each tank has their own regulators. So in an emergency, if Scott had his regulator in and something happened to his main tank, he could grab his pony bottle and just slip it in his mouth, so he always has air. On every setup is a pressure gauge with a computer and a compass. Inflator hose for inflating the pack so he can float if he has to float. And there are hooks and things that we can hook gear onto. You can see he's got a mask that he wears and the fins.
And gloves.
And gloves. And you should have knives. We always have knives for emergencies and scissors in case we get entangled in something, we can cut our way out of it. We also have the ability with the line signals to call for help. If we get in trouble underwater, somebody can come out and help us. And of course, we need weight. You have to add extra weight to get underwater and stay underwater. And that's about it.
Let me ask you, how much does the gear weigh?
Well, I think I'm wearing about 20 or 25 pounds of weight. That's just weight to get me down. The tanks, they've got to be on the order of 25 or 30 pounds. And the BC and everything, once it gets wet, it adds a little bit more. But of course, when you're in the water, you're far more buoyant, and so it doesn't feel that bad. You saw me struggling a minute ago to get up here. On land, obviously, it's a little cumbersome, but once you get in the water, you become virtually weightless.
And what would the difference be between diving in a pond such as this, of which we have many in Harwich, and diving in Nantucket Sound at increased depths?
Well, of course, there's an awful lot of differences between fresh and salt water. He's talking about depth, temperature, currents, and so forth. But of course, the salt water is more buoyant, or the salinity makes you more buoyant. And so some people actually do have to change their weights depending on whether they go into fresh and salt water. I've been able to keep mine relatively consistent, so I don't need to switch, which I like, because if you're going to an event, you want to be able to get in quick. So I guess that's it.
Okay. Some of the challenges that you face, some of the difficulties when you get in the water, what might they be, and how do you deal with them?
Sure. The first challenge is especially today, the shock of the cold water. You want to get your face in real quick and get used to that. And this is a wetsuit, and by the name you can tell it gets water inside, and the water actually helps keep you warm. It acts as a little bit of a insulant, but it gets cold first, and then it gets warm. Some of the folks behind me that you'll see in a few minutes, they've got dry suits on, and they keep the water out, and the air is what keeps you warm. So the temperature maybe is the first thing. Secondly, in almost all the water around here, including the ponds, well, looking at it from here, you might say, my gosh, that looks awfully clear, lots of visibility, but it's all silty on the bottom. And that's usually where we're looking for stuff. And so, if we're get our flippers going and whatnot, and you're moving around, all of a sudden you get that silt up, and your visibility becomes almost zero. And that gets to be challenging. First of all, when you're looking for something, but it gets disorienting too, because there's an awful lot of minerals in the silt around here. And so if it's a sunny day, it's like sparkles all around in front of you, so you can't really see what you're doing. So you get it's almost like being in a fire where you can't see. You calm down. You methodically go through your search. You use your hands. You use your other senses, and but that's a big challenge.
The gear, and you talked about wetsuit, dry suit. Who owns it? Is it, and who maintains it? Is it the department? Is it the individual diver's gear? How is that? How does that work?
It's a little bit of a mix right now. Some departments have an awful lot of funding for the team and so forth. In Harwich, we've sort of had to go to a hybrid system to keep our team going. And so I own the suit and the most of the equipment. The bottles are department owned. And those need to be tested every couple of years, hydroed, and so the department pays to have that done. There's also some maintenance that needs to happen on our regulators and so forth, and the department picks that up. And so we've sort of met the department halfway in the interest of keeping the team going, because it's something, first of all, we enjoy doing. I think it's an important service to keep within the town, and so we're flexible there.
And it would seem obvious if we had a situation at a local pond that you could drive to the scene, disembark, get your equipment. But Lieutenant, if you would talk about situations that we need to get on a boat and go offshore, what happens there?
We have several boats in the harbor master's office that we use, as well as the Coast Guard, and we have dove off the Coast Guard boats before. Is we have a dive truck that carries all our gear. We'll bring it to wherever we're going, go on the boats and dive off the boats. We do drill once in a while with the Coast Guard and the harbor master, so that we're working on the same page. We've done that several times. So that's our department. We don't have a boat worthy of it right now. We're working toward it, but the harbor master we work very well with, and it's going good that way.
Okay. Scott, thanks for your time. We'll let you get back to the drill.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now it's good to note that, it's good to note that when it comes to the gear and the price of gear, working with the chiefs of the local departments, as well as Chief Olson from Katuitt, I was able to secure a federal grant for new gear. We have a very large grant coming that is going to supply us with all new gear, top to bottom, for 40 divers and training for 40 divers. We are now in the process of setting up a Cape Cod regional dive team that's going to work in concert with the Cape Cod Technical Rescue Team. So hopefully Christmas will come early this year for all of us, and we'll get some new gear.
Okay. Thanks, Lieutenant.
Yep. Hi again. We're going to do a little demonstration of a search pattern here. We have Lieutenant Tony Kent from Dennis Fire Department and Captain Billy Sprague on the line. We have Scott Tilsley here again as the backup diver with Timmy Tobin as his tender. What they're doing is we threw some clay pigeons out in the water, and they're going to be searching for these, simulating evidence recovery. Now, like I said before, is everything has hand signals, so when Tony finds something, he's going to signal back that he finds it. That's good.
We always have backup divers ready to land.
In the old days when we used to do this, we were taught to put 10 people on a line and go out and just sweep around until we found something. And they found that that was very dangerous. So now we've gone to a new system where it's one person, one line. You have total communication with your diver. Every diver has a backup diver with a line, and then there's another diver standing by that is partially dressed waiting for the third time. So the signals from the tender to the diver are one pull tells the diver to stop and take up the slack on the line. When the diver's all set, the tender, who is holding the line, will give him more signals. 3 signals from the tender to the diver means the diver should go to their right. 4 signals means diver should go to their left. 6 pulls on the line from the diver means they found the object. 4 pulls by the diver should come up. When the diver's in trouble, they give 2 pulls, and that means that they're in trouble, but leave them alone, they can take care of it. They're just a little tangled on something. If they give 3 pulls, it means they're okay, but they need a little help from the backup diver. If they give 4 pulls or continue pulling, which we try to tell them, don't worry about how many you pull, but if you're in a lot of trouble, keep pulling on the line until we get down to you. The line bags that we carry hold 150 feet of line, and as generally in the industry, the maximum a diver can go out. Most divers, if they're doing a search for a small object, their attention span gets pretty low after a while, so we only allow the divers 20 minutes in the water. If they have enough air and they think they're doing okay, we can give them another 5 minutes as an extra, but 20 minutes is basically what we put in the water, and that should bring them back with plenty of air in their tank in case there's emergency. If you notice the lines, the line that the tender has is nice and tight, so he's feeling all the line tugs, and you just had some tugs from the diver saying he found the object. I think the diver's in trouble, so we have our backup diver here who's ready to go, and we're going to simulate a rescue. Now the backup diver is going to just put his fingers around the diver's line to follow it out, because in dark water you can't see where you're going. And he's going to go out to the diver and see what the problem is. They have hand signals underwater they can do to each other to show where the problem is, and they will come up together as a fixed rescue. Now they're on the surface, they'll just inflate their BCs and float in. Tenders will pull them into shore. You can see you found the object.
And here we are with a couple of newer members of the dive team with one older member of the dive team. And I'd just like this opportunity to have each of them introduce themselves. And with Tony Kent, a member of the Dennis dive team. Now, I'm not sure we're going to have enough time for Tony. So if you will, I'm here with firefighter paramedic Eric Elliott, who's a recent addition to the Harwich Fire Department. Eric, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Eric Elliott, born and raised in Harwich. Been diving about 20 years. Been a paramedic for 8 years, and glad to be a part of the Harwich Fire Department.
Okay, and as you can see, Jill, you're taking a picture of Russ Ritchie back in 1956, probably one of the first divers that we've had here in Harwich, and the legacy continues here. Standing next to Eric is firefighter EMT Ryan Edwards. Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Ryan Edwards. I actually got my dive certification through a program through UMass, so I got right on the dive team as soon as I got on the department. Been on about 5 years now, and love it every day.
And as you can see, Ryan's holding a picture of former Chief Charlie Hall with Russ Ritchie, and Lieutenant Jakes tells us that picture is at the pool at Otis. So, Mike, if you'd introduce Lieutenant Jakes for us.
This is Lieutenant Jakes. He's a founding member of the dive team with myself, and he was diving as one of the regular firefighters before that. He was instrumental with the rest of us when we set up this dive team 20 years ago.
So I've been diving for about 30 years now, and as Mike said, with Harwich, we've been diving together for a good 20 years now. I'm a lieutenant paramedic, 29 years on the department now. So.
Okay. Thanks for taking time out of a busy day here at Sheep's Pond. I appreciate it. And with all the bodies of water that we have here in Harwich, with the ponds, Nantucket Sound, there's a lot of activity that takes place there, and certainly emergencies happen throughout the year. And when the weather gets really cold and the ice forms, we use a different set of equipment, maybe some of the same divers, but let's take a look at what we do when ice forms here.
Okay, in this demonstration, we're using the two rescuer approach. The primary rescuer, as you see, is heading out on a sled or board device with ice picks to pull himself along the ice. And then the rescuer closer to shore is the backup or secondary rescuer. Each board or sled device is attached with a line to the shore, and each rescuer is also attached with a line to the board. As they approach the victim, he will take a belt type device, has flotation on it, wrap it around the victim's chest. First off, cinch him up. And that is to keep the victim from falling below the water. The rescuer safety is first. Afterwards, the primary concern for the victim is to get a flotation device under their upper chest or head to keep them from falling under the ice. The effects of the cold cause the upper extremities and lower extremities to essentially become paralyzed, and in about 10 to 15 minutes they lose the ability to hold on. So we have about 10 to 15 minutes to get a flotation device underneath the victim before they will fall under the ice or below the surface of the water. Okay, now you see they have the victim on the device, the flotation board. Primary rescuer gave the signal for the haul team when he's ready, and they'll haul the device back over the ice. During the evolution, we try to keep the victim in a horizontal position, as you see. Also, gentle handling of severely hypothermic patients is extremely important. We don't want any sudden stops or bumps. In everything we do, we want to be very gentle with the victim.
That's good.
We've come from Fisherman's Landing in Brewster to Bucks Pond here in Harwich, where it's a little bit colder, and the topic today is going to be on ice rescue. Our standard operating procedure, the equipment that we use, and I've got Firefighter Rob Sanders with us here today, and he's going to talk a little bit about hypothermia and some of the effects on victims that are subjected to cold water. Welcome here, Rob.
Thank you. Glad to be back again.
We're going to move over and take a look at some of the equipment here, so I'll step out of the way and let you do your thing.
Okay. Great. Today at Bucks Pond, we're doing a cold water rescue drill. Because of the warm weather, there's no ice, but essentially the procedures are very, very similar, with ice being really an obstacle to our efforts. So to start off with, the victims of cold water, I'm going to discuss a little bit what their problems are, what the dangers are, and why we gear our rescue efforts towards that. Cold water, by definition, is water less than 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So what does that mean in New England? It means virtually year-round we're surrounded by cold water. So when a victim falls in cold water, there's really three hurdles they have to get over, and really the first two are the ones that usually do most victims in. The first one is called torso reflex, and that refers to when the victim here is suddenly submerged in cold water. The cold effects of the cold on the facial area, they essentially hyperventilate and they breathe 10, 15, 20 times more than they need to. And the problem is if their face is at the surface of the water, they tend to breathe in water and goes down to the lungs. That usually lasts with most people about 1 to 4 or 5 minutes. They eventually will get over it. The next hurdle is referred to as peripheral cooling, or drastic cooling of the extremities. And what happens is, as a protective mechanism for the major organs of the body will pull warm blood from the extremities, the arms and the feet, into the core to keep the brain, heart, and lungs alive. It actually takes a long time, hours, for somebody to die from what we refer to as core hypothermia. So after about, in 40-degree water, and today we have about 48-degree water, in 40-degree water, the average adult has about 15 to 20 minutes before their arms and legs essentially are going to be paralyzed from the cold and essentially be useless. So if somebody falls in the water and does not have a PFD, and this is the reason the Coast Guard greatly urges anybody on the water for any activity to wear a PFD. Right? So if they don't have a PFD, they don't have any thermal protection, in about 15 to 20 minutes at 40-degree water, the victim won't be able to wave, won't be able to kick their feet, they essentially will be paralyzed. So most victims actually drowned from peripheral cooling. Okay, and the last thing is core hypothermia, and it could take up to 45 to 50 minutes for the core, the body, to actually start to cool down. The rescuer here is subjected to the same dangers in the water as the victims. So before we go in, we have to protect ourselves. So for cold water rescue, what firefighter Rigo has here is a cold water rescue suit. This is an entire jumpsuit design with a zipper, has 2 parts to it, an outer shell, okay, and also an inner thermal barrier there. Okay. The outer shell protects, it keeps them dry, keeps the water out, and the thermal barrier right here also adds to its protection. It's foam filled, and the air in the foam essentially gives him buoyancy. The suit is only rated for buoyancy for 1 person, so this just provides protection to the firefighter or the rescuer. Other parts of the suit, because this suit is designed not just to survive, but also to work in, to go out and rescue personnel. So it has reinforced wristlets, gloves, boots, a harness where we can attach a rope device, which we'll get to in a second, attachments for lighting, so if we go out at night, we can see the rescuer. So he being zipped up here is totally encapsulated, has full thermal protection and full buoyancy. Okay. So in addition to that, we have to bring a buoyant device, a flotation device, to the victim. And there are various devices out on the market. Joe has one of them here. This is a buoyancy, one type of buoyancy device. There are also life buoys, pelican buoys, all different designs, and also the board device, which we'll get to in a second. So this device here will be used for the victim, to give the victim some buoyancy, and again, to keep their head above the water, with the thought being by the time we get to them with cold water, they won't be able to do it again. They've lost the use of their arms and legs. Okay? So as a rescuer goes out, he's going to bring a device with him. If it was a short distance from shore, Joe might, firefighter Rigo might just swim out, bring his device here for the victim. We'd have him attached to a rope so we could haul him back. So that way he's only exerting himself in one direction, concentrating on getting to the victim, securing a buoyant device, and then the rescuers on shore can bring him back. If it's a great distance out, we could use what we call here a board device, greater speed, lots of buoyancy, lifts the rescue high up the water. Very, very effective in water rescue for several reasons. One is if you have difficulty gaining access to the victim, in a marsh area, an area where you can't launch a boat, it only takes 4 inches of water and this floats. We can attach ropes on it, so a very, very versatile device, lightweight, we can carry it anywhere. If firefighter Eagle wanted to use the board device, we would attach a rope onto the anchor point here, and then the rescuer would also be attached. So the rescuer is always attached to a rope on the shore whenever they go out and perform their rescues. So what's happening here is we have our victim out off the pond there, off the shore, and we'll pretend it was a kayaker that fell over, and because of the cold water, can't swim in, using their energy just to keep their head above the water. So you see what we refer to as a primary rescuer. We always send out two rescuers. One is the backup, one the primary. So the primary rescuer is on a board, tethered to shore by a rope, and the rescuer is also attached to the board by a piece of webbing and a strap. The secondary rescuer, to your right, we send out a little bit of an angle so we don't tangle up the rope, and they go about halfway out and just kind of stand by, so in case the primary rescuer needs assistance, or if they have multiple rescuers, or if the rescuer himself gets into trouble, he can wave the secondary rescuer in. So what you're noticing now is we'll stop the board device a few feet from the victim, keeping the board between the rescuer and the victim, because sometimes victims get very combative in this stage, and they will jump and fight and use you as your flotation device if they need to, if they feel they're on the brink of drowning. So that's for rescuer safety. The rescuer is reaching over the board and using the device to put around the victim under their the flotation device on their armpit to give them some sort of immediate buoyancy. And then what the rescuers do now is he took the board and flipped it over, and we're pretending the victim has no strength at all and cannot assist in their own rescue. And that's a technique where you put their armpits under the board and you flip it, and as you see, the victim ends up on top of the board. So the rescuer kind of assists them on the board, and then when he or she is ready, they give a signal to the shore crew, and the shore personnel will slowly bring the victim in. You saw him wave and give the signal. And I mentioned slowly. When you haul somebody in, either on ice or on the water, you want to do it gentle and resist the temptation to use adrenaline and haul them in fast, because it could tip them over. That's one reason we're kind of hesitant to use bystanders on the rescue rope to haul people in, for that reason. We want a nice, slow, controlled pull back to shore. When we do get back to shore, the victim will be, cold water submersion victim will be treated very gently. We won't make them walk. We'll keep them in a supine position, start to give them oxygen right away, because in water submersion incidents, it's really the hypoxia. Even if they haven't ingested a lot of water, that's the big danger. Then once we get them into the ambulance, we'll slowly rewarm them.
Something to consider for the general public is, for example, they're walking on the beach, maybe walking their dog, and see somebody in the water, or if it's icy on top of the ice, whether they're skating or walking or whatever, and all of a sudden fall through. So the first thing is to call 911 immediately. And the second thing would be, and creates a possible problem, when they go below the surface of the water and now they're not seen anymore. So if it's snowing or it's very cloudy, and depending on the distance from shore, it can be a problem. But there are some things that you can do to give the rescuers really important information, because time is of the essence, and the better point that the last seen point of the victim can help us tremendously. And I'll have Rob just talk about some of the things that the public can do if they're ever in that position. Rob?
Great. Thanks, John. As John mentioned before, absolutely the first thing to do is call 911 and give an accurate location. Many times in the panic, somebody will say, oh, somebody's out in a pond, and hangs up. So give the exact location, and the best access, what beach, what section of the pond, what street the victim is off of. All right, so that speeds up our response time and helps us gain access. Something Captain Clark later mentioned also was referred to as the last scene point. If the victim does fall beneath the surface of the water or surface of the ice, it's important that we know where the last scene point is. And that's very easy to do to get a basic idea. And if this can be done with one bystander or two. If it was one bystander, I got a visual of where the victim is, approximately the distance offshore, okay, and I see them go below the ice or the surface of the water. First thing you do is you look beyond the victim to the other side and get a reference point, a tree, a house, a steeple, anything, and then simply with your foot, keeping an eye on where the victim was, draw your foot in the sand, draw a line in the sand, okay, and then if you're by yourself, you can go over another 1,500 feet, okay, same proximate point, another reference point beyond there, and draw another line in the sand. Okay, if you have several people, you can spread the word and have multiple reference points. So when the rescuers get here, at least we have some kind of visual for where the victim was last seen. You don't want to become a victim yourself. Interesting statistic that the Coast Guard uses quite a bit. It hasn't changed in the last 100 years. 2/3 of all deaths from water submersion, 2/3 are not the initial victim, but would-be rescuers. Bystanders include, and also includes professional rescuers too. It's a very dangerous environment. So you need to keep that in mind. 2/3 of all drownings, all deaths from water submersion incidents are the would-be rescuers. Okay, so some things to keep you out of trouble, yet still help the victim. In addition to what I already mentioned, if they're close to shore and you have a flotation device, a ring buoy, basically anything that floats and you can throw it to the victim, that's absolutely one thing you can do. If you could take a rope and throw it out to them. With cold water rescue this time of year, usually unless you get to the victim very soon, they're going to lose the use of their hands very quickly after about probably 10-15 minutes. So throwing a rope or a throw device may not work, and you could try it, absolutely try it, but usually after 15 minutes or so in 40-degree water, it's what we refer to as a go rescue. A professional rescue has to go in the cold water and get them. Okay? So you don't want to get into trouble, because if you go in the water and you don't have the proper equipment, you're entering the same dangerous environment as the victim is. Also, with our general rule for any public safety agency is if regarding animal rescues, dogs, deer, anything, don't go after the animal. Call us. We will go out and attempt the rescue. Large percentage of fatalities end up in start out as animal rescues. They're walking the dog, they come off the leash, they fall through the ice, and naturally the owner feels very bad for them and wants to go. But again, if they don't have the proper clothing, they end up being a victim themselves.
That'll do it today from Bucks Pond here this afternoon. And I hope you've enjoyed watching members of Group 1 give us a show about ice rescue and the equipment we use. As you see behind us, we're not in the dead of winter yet when we might expect the pond to be frozen over to some degree. But remember that no ice really is 100% safe. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.